In this video, you'll see how I recreate this skeuomorphic button in Framer from complete scratch. You'll learn about smart layering techniques as well as drop and inner shadows to achieve a realistic visual effect, and you'll also learn about components to animate what you've just designed. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So here we have this really cool button from Camden. I found it on Twitter, and you can see that it simply looks amazing. So in this video we're going to attempt to recreate this. I have not done it yet, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be able to do it. So yeah, you're going to also find the remix link for this down in the description. So if you've just come for the button and you just want to steal it, then shame on you, go ahead, steal it and then leave. But if you want to learn, then keep watching the video and maybe build with me. So once we have a Framer project opened on our screen, we can start building this. So we probably need a reference image, right? So I'm going to just click or stop this little video and then just do a screenshot. I'm going to drag and drop it here. Really nice. And then maybe, as you can see, it has a hover effect where it like elevates. We're going to also screenshot this. I think that's the two things that we need. Boom. Here we have the two images, and now we can start creating it. I'm just gonna drop it here because I kind of want to see the size. I'm not sure how big this should be in our version. Maybe like this. Yeah, that looks great, I think. So I'm gonna just leave this here, this screenshot, this reference, and then I'll start drawing frames here on the right. So really important, if you're completely new to Framer, you're gonna be able to watch this video no problem. You just press the F on your keyboard to draw a frame, and now you have a frame really easy, right? Then we kind of need to have a text layer too. That's also easy to add. You just press down T, click within the frame that you created, and then you just type in get started. Here we have learn more, but bro, like this is a primary CTA, it's not a secondary button, we all know that. So get started. I think I'll make this a little bit bolder, like medium maybe, and then potentially I could increase the size, but I'm not really sure how. Yeah, we're kind of matching the size right now, so it's gonna be maybe 18 pixels, yeah. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just round its parent. So I'm gonna click the frame, and then the radius on the right panel is going to be increased. Now it's completely rounded. Then I'll just press down Shift, Command and 4 on my keyboard. This is why I usually use this in a screenshotter tool. I use this for like measuring and stuff, and I just press Escape before taking the screenshot to cancel it. So this way I can see that our frame is a little bit larger. So we can set it to maybe 70 or 68 pixels height. And then I kind of want this frame to be, you know, responsive. When I change the text, it should also change. So the way we can do that is we can set the width of this frame to fit content. So now you can see this happens. I can also rename this stack to text wrap. And then in order to have some space on the left and the right of this little text, we can add padding. So the text wrap frame is selected, and the left and right padding will be increased here to 60 maybe? I don't know. Yeah, that looks great. So now we have this frame, but you can see that it has a little bit different color on the original. So I'm gonna try getting that color. So I'm gonna just select the fill color of the text wrap frame on the right panel. And then with this little thingy, I'll be able to get this color. Really cool. However, you see that this is kind of like a gradient here, going from one color to the other. And I'm also not sure if I want to go with this specific color. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the color and then change it to maybe blue. And then I'm going to switch this to a linear fill with this little button. And then we're going to rotate it, because this is kind of the thing that we see right here, I think at least. And then we will switch up these. So we have a point on the bottom right and the point in the top left, and the top left point will be getting this color here, but then changing that to a different hue, maybe something like this. I think that looks great. Now I'm just thinking, what should the color be on the text layer? Because yeah, white is not great. It's gonna be dark. But you can see that it's not completely black here. It's a little bit more like grayish. And maybe we can also add the tint. So to add the little tint to a color, you can just click to whatever color you want to tint it with. So maybe blue. And then instead of having the color on the left side here completely, it's just grayscale, no tint. You start moving this to the right. And you can see it starts, well, you can't really see it. It's not that strong on the bottom, black colors, but here on the top, you can see it starts getting more of like a blue color. So we'll just get this sort of black feel and then move it to the right to tint it with sort of like this blue color. Yeah, I think it looks great. Maybe it can even be a little bit, maybe we can decrease the letter spacing. I'm going to change a few things about this font, sorry. If I mess around too much with the unrelated stuff, you can skip ahead. But I'm going to, I think, decrease the letter spacing slightly. Maybe I'm going to add variable. I'm going to change this value here slightly to 24 optical, and then the weight is going to be 540, I guess. And now I like this text a little bit more. I can also enable open type and some character alternates. Well, I'm not sure if I want to enable all of them, but maybe G and maybe the A as well. There you go. Now this is much better. We can see another little detail on the text. On the bottom, it has a highlight. Maybe you cannot see it, maybe you can. It's a small detail. It's hardly noticeable, but it's there. So I'm going to select the text, and then on the right, under the text here, I can actually press this little plus button because shadow is not added yet. So here, shadow. And then I can set this blur to 0 or a really small number, like 0.5. And then I'll just set it to white. And the opacity will be, it can be 1 or 100, sorry, but maybe it's going to be dropped just slightly. And this can also get like a tint of blue. So I'll just start tweaking this. The problem with this is we cannot zoom in too much because then it disappears, so we cannot really preview it properly. But yeah, as you can see, we're just adding a subtle highlight on the bottom of the text, making it look a little bit more like 3D or adding a little bit depth to it. So yeah, I think this will look great. We can also try adding the same sort of shadow, so duplicate this highlight that we added on the bottom. And we add it to the top instead too. So -1 will be the Y, putting it to the top of the text. So you can see it on the top. And here on the top, we're going to change it to black. Something really dark. I don't know if that's going to do the effect that I need. Maybe -0.5. Not 5, but 0.5. Why can I set 0.5? Thank you so much. And maybe I can drop it a little bit. I don't really like that it has blur here. Well, maybe, yeah, maybe with like a low opacity level. Yeah, something like this. It looks a little bit more 3D right now. It has a little depth. Now let's move on to the customization of the text wrap frame, because you can see that here, this is not a single like linear gradient here. We have some shadow here. This is also additional shadow here. And it also has a highlight. You can see it's a little bit more white here. So we have to add a bunch of inner and drop shadows. So let's first add the top darkest and the bottom lightest. And then we're going to add this a little bit more like subtle, bigger drop shadow. So let's select first for the text wrap. And then on the right, shadows. And it's going to be an inner shadow, and we're going to just tweak it to make it look like this. So the Y will be maybe 4, the blur will be 0, and then I don't know how much it is. Yeah, maybe 3 or yeah, I'm going to use 3 pixel. And then we could do like black and opacity to make the color darker below. But again, this will lose the tint. So what I like or prefer doing is just selecting the color here and then making that darker. And now you can see that we literally get something that's actually blue. Yeah, I'm just trying to match the color tone so it's darker but not too dark. So yeah, maybe something like this. And then we're gonna add another shadow. So we can actually duplicate the one that we have. And then this one will be -1, so it's on the bottom. Maybe even -1 is enough probably. Or -1.5. And then here, we're gonna again pick this color, but now it's gonna be much like lighter white. So you can see now we have that white rim on the bottom, but it's going to be much more visible once we have the additional wrapper frames around. And now let's just do this shadow here, which is a little bit larger and it's offset to the right a little bit. So again, let's add the new shadow now inside. Let's set the blur to 0 and let's just start moving this. It's going to be something like this, and also change the X offset. Yes, I think this is sort of the position. And then of course it's not that dark, it is much more lighter, so we're gonna get this color and then we're gonna try, well, it's not that easy getting the color that we actually need. Actually, maybe here we're gonna do black and then opacity, because I find it quite hard setting a proper color on that. And even since this is already pretty dark and it's kind of matching the dark shadow that we added on the top, maybe we're gonna keep it like this, like 5%, and this one will be a little bit darker, so they have a little bit more contrast when they are right next to each other. Yeah, something like this. Now that you have this, we can add this, thicker rim. So to create this effect here, because now we only have this part, like this inner text wrap frame, but we need another frame around, right? So let me create that. Well, before we do that, actually, let's take a look at this, because I think we're going to see something really important, which is the fact that this button actually has some extra depth here on the bottom. So it's actually, I think, a better idea to recreate it in this state, and then here we're going to be able to just place in another frame and just push it down a little bit to hide that bottom part that is visible here. So let's actually now take a look at this and continue by recreating this specific version. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, sorry, this is my first time, so it's going to be a bunch of back and forth, but I just want to change the fill color, the main fill color, to a little bit lighter, because I feel like that the black text doesn't have enough contrast. So I'm just make these two colors a little bit lighter, like something like this. Yeah, I think now it's a little bit better. So now the text wrap frame will be wrapped in an additional stack. We can do that by either pressing Option Command Enter on the keyboard or right clicking and adding a stack. This will be set to fit width, so it fits the content within, and then we can add the fill color to this. So now it has a white fill color, but you can see that we would need some additional space around. We can add that by adjusting the padding value here. So we're just trying to recreate this rim width, so we have no idea what's the size on that, but maybe 6. And then we'll set the radius to 100, so it's fully rounded. There you go. The color, now the color on this, you can see that it's a linear gradient. Here it's more greenish, here it's more like yellow. So we're going to do the same here. We're going to select this linear and it's going to be rotated a little bit. The left color will be similar to this one. It's a little bit more saturated, I think. So here it's just going to be a bunch of tweaking to get this right. But yeah, let's go with maybe something like this. And then on the bottom, maybe I rotate this even more like this. And then on the bottom, and also we can move this here like this, and then this here. And so this here on the bottom will be closer to this color, but a little bit more saturated and a little bit darker, maybe lighter. Well, I have no idea, but yeah, I guess something like this. We can now see that this bottom like light rim is a little bit too much, so we'll set -1 on that, or even -1 minus 0.5. That's too little. Yeah, -1 is gonna be enough. We could also consider dropping the opacities. It's not that strong, but for now I like the strong light on the bottom. So okay, that's great. You can see that this has a top like light rim, that's for sure, and then it will also have this bottom part here. I'm thinking how the bottom part is created. It can be a simple drop shadow. However, if we do it that way, we cannot add the linear color to that drop shadow, but I'm just trying to see if this color here is the same as this, and probably kind of the same. We're gonna try it and see how it looks. So first of all, select this tag. By the way, we can rename this to button content, and we can add a shadow here inside. It's gonna be 0 blur, and then it's gonna be white maybe. Yeah, so now you can see that that top light rim is getting added on the top of that frame. So yeah, I don't know how much we need, maybe 50. Yeah, we can do 70, and then we do the same on the bottom. So add shadow. Now this is going to be outside, but the blur will be 0, and you can see I'm just increasing this, and we get this 3D effect. So we just have to see how much. It's kind of the same size as this part here. So this is a big help for us, because we know that this here is 6 pixels. So this will also have to be 6. So why 6? There you go. Easy. And then it's a little bit darker version of this top color. So we get this, and then we can make it darker. And look at that. We're getting a 3-dimensional button. Looks really nice, isn't it? Maybe we can increase the size of the text here, because I feel like it's a little bit too small. So maybe 20 pixels is going to be the one that we go with. Then I'm gonna also, now I don't really like this bottom light. It's too much. I'm gonna decrease it a little bit. Boom, 70%. And yeah, that's all. That's it. So you can see that we have some additional elements, because when we press down this button, it goes inside. So it's a really crazy effect. Look at this. If we come here, you can see how it goes inside. So this really tells me that this here is actually an additional frame. Yeah. So what we have to do is we have to get this button content frame. So this is the top frame, the last frame that we created. We wrap this in another frame. So again, option going to enter or add stack here. We're going to set the width to fit content. The height is also fit content. We're going to call this whole. And I'm just thinking, how should we do this? I think we have to set the radius to 100. So by default, we see this. And then when we increase the bottom padding, it kind of comes out. But I kind of want to handle this a little bit differently. No, actually it's fine. We can handle it like this. The only thing I don't like is when I change the bottom padding, this whole thing will be growing, and that's not going to be great for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the height to fixed on this whole, and then we're going to set vertical direction and distribute. And then when we increase this value here, it's just moving to the top. Now we're going to see an additional problem, which is the fact that, okay, we move it to the top, but then it's cropping at the top. So this is a really unique setup, because it should, crop on the bottom, because you see as it goes inside, it gets hidden a little bit because of this hole. But when it moves to the top, it's not cropping. See? When it moves inside, on the bottom it crops. When it moves up, it's not cropping on the top. So what can we do? Okay, so I have an idea. I'm going to set these paddings to 0. I'll make this hole a little bit larger. So now I'm going to be able to move it up and not have cropping on the top. We actually just have to make it a little bit larger. We can scientifically calculate it. If the base is 80 pixels, then it's 80 plus 6, because 6 pixels is the movement that we have. So boom, we're going to be able to move it out like this. And the problem with this is that, you know, we want to recreate this sort of effect, this whole thing right here. So it has a fill color, it has like this rim, shadow and light and everything. So how do we recreate that? Because if we add color, now you can see it appears on the top and it should not. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an additional frame. So this will be just whole mask, because it will be used for masking the bottom when it moves down. And then I'm going to wrap this in an additional one. I used option command enter, and then I'm setting it to fit width. And then to make this the correct size, so we kind of have to remove this top part somehow. And my idea is that maybe we can rename this to the actual hole. And then we're going to have vertical direction and distribute, and instead of having height on bit content, we're going to have it on relative. And we can define this in percentage, but I just realized that this is not great, because this relative value gets the parent frame, which is the complete like website here, which is like really large. So we cannot really use this percentage value that well. However, what we can do is we can set this to fit instead. Actually, it's going to be fixed. Sorry guys, I said it's my first time. So the whole mask will be fixed 80 pixels. Then we're going to set the inner button content to relative instead. And then we're going to make it a little bit larger. And then we're going to set it to vertical and end. Yeah. And somehow we have to make it large enough in pixels so that we have 7 or 6 here. 6, perfect. So 108, and it works perfectly, I think. We can set bottom padding on the whole mask, set it to 6. It moves up, and it's kind of getting cropped. I think the reason is because the hole that we created, the additional wrapper, it's overflow hidden. We have to set it to visible, and now it's still not good. What is going on? What did I set to? Okay, sorry guys, I set the button content to relative. It should stay fit. Okay, it should stay fit, and then the whole mask should be relative and 108%, I think, or I don't know what I had. Yeah, 108 probably, 107. Yeah. So now again, let's check this. If I change the bottom padding here, it moves down. I can move it up, and it does not start cropping only after a little time. Maybe we can set it to a little bit larger, and that's it. We're gonna be able to do this really nice. And then we want to move. If you want to move it down inside, then we would increase the top padding, but it's not working. Maybe if we change it here. No, not good. Okay, so this is, by the way, because the whole mask is set to end distribute. We can, yeah, but it's not gonna work when it's centered, because then you can see it's just messed up. But we could use this and then just tweak these values to have the proper spacing on or the proper position on both variants. So I can increase the top a little bit to move it to its starting state, and then I can also increase it more to move it inside a little bit more down, and then I can set the bottom padding to move it up. So I think we're going to do this. So its starting position is this when it's in the surface area, sort of. Cool. And we did all these things because now we can have a whole frame that we can set to 100 radius. We can add the fill color to it, for example. That is going to be, well, I don't know. It's going to probably be something like this. Yeah, like bluish thing. Let's get this color, but it's going to be darker. Maybe we set this to a little bit larger top. Yeah, now we can see that how it's gonna look when we are actually within the hole. So yeah, I kind of want to match this properly. We can actually add a gradient. We can set this up like that. It's maybe a little bit lighter on the top, and then as it moves in, it's getting darker. Well, it's a little too much. Yeah, I kind of like this, but on the bottom I don't want this color, so I'm gonna copy this, paste it here, and then this here will be lighter. Like, I honestly don't know what. I also don't know why it's showing up here. Honestly, it's a little weird. Okay, technically I don't think that it should, because all of these are the same size. But whatever, we're gonna live with it. Maybe we can also set this to non-visible color. So at 50%, around 50%, somewhere here, it literally disappears. Maybe this is good. And then we also need some additional stuff around, so we need a little rim here as well. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna select the hole again, shadow, inner shadow. Inside we're gonna have this color, so we're gonna get this, but a little bit darker version, and we're gonna have 0 blur. Maybe it's gonna be 1. Yeah, it's gonna be 1. We're gonna make it darker like this, but not so much darker, something like this. Yeah, and then we're gonna also add a light part, a light rim part. So we're gonna duplicate this, we're gonna set outside, and then -1, and then this is lighter. So as you can see, as they meet there, they create this like really cool effect. However, I have a feeling that here they are a little bit blurred, just slightly. So I'm gonna try that, adding a really subtle blur on these, maybe 0.5. Also on this 0.5. I don't know, maybe it can maybe be -2 on the light. Yeah, I think 1 is enough here. Also here, it's not really true that it's on the top. It's kind of offset it to the left. So the light is on the left, something like this. And then it's gonna have more of a stronger effect on the right. But actually we can also see that the same happens with this darker thing. So it's moved to the right a little bit. So you can see it moves to the right like this. Not so much, but just a little bit. And then maybe it actually gets this darker color. No, not really. We need the surface color on that. So we're gonna use this in a darker version. Yep. And then we're going to duplicate the highlight, and we're going to add it on the right side because it's actually stronger there. So like this. And we're going to actually bump it up to like a, and this is what I don't get. Like, why is this space here? Like, you see, like they're not touching. I don't get it. Which layer is the problem? Whole mask. It's the whole mask. But oh, okay. It's because the whole mask, you remember we set it to a little bit larger size. So when the size is larger, the radius will be kind of distorted. So what we have to do is we have to decrease this corner round value a little bit to make those match up. Something like this. Great. So whole. Again, we're gonna tweak this to get this. Maybe 1.5 is enough. And then for blur, well, maybe 0.5 here on the blur, or 1. It's not too much. It's actually, we don't really have too much Y offset. It's mostly X, so maybe 2 on X. So yeah, something like this. If you look from a distance, it's not actually that bad. Great, great, great. That's cool. We've done that. So let's move this button to different position. So I'm gonna put this to 0 and then move it up a little bit. Yeah, and it still looks good. That's cool. I'm gonna move it back down just slightly, not too much now. And that's great. And now that we have this, let's see. We have a little problem because you can see that when it's right here, we have a little bit more of a stronger, like darker border around. Like here we don't really have that. So we're gonna select the whole and we're gonna add some additional outside drop shadows. I'm gonna add 0, 0, 0 blur, and I'll try maybe adding spread to do this, and then I can move it up here. That was not a great idea. I'm gonna move it back down so it's below everything, and maybe I can get a color that's a little darker like this. Okay, maybe I can blur it a little bit. Maybe that's gonna make it better. Well, yeah. Okay, maybe it's a little bit lighter, a little bit more subtle. Okay, and then I think what we can do is at certain places we can add more of like a stronger dark effect. So for example, at the left it's a little bit darker, maybe at the top too. So we're gonna duplicate this, and then we're gonna move it a little bit like this. Maybe we're gonna flip these two, then change the spread, then make it a little bit darker, change these values a little bit. You want to move it up and then to the left, something like this, but then it's too strong. You have to make it a little bit more subtle. Okay, I think I'm not gonna mess around with it more. This is gonna be roughly it. It's not an accurate recreation, but it sort of is the feel that we need. Now the last element is these little triangular things. I will try to do it with, well, I don't know, probably SVGs. So I'm going to wrap this whole in another stack. What happened? I don't know. Okay, set everything to fit. Now things maybe look a little bit better. We have to set visible overflow. That will also help. But I don't really get though what happened here. So we had this. Oh, because it has 10%. Okay, let's set it to fixed. Okay, cool. Now I can wrap it in a stack and no problem will happen. So here I kinda don't even need anything. We're just gonna call this button. We're gonna draw a shape like this. I just press down P on my keyboard to draw this shape. So it's something like this, but I kind of want to make it symmetrical, so we'll have to tweak it. So yeah, maybe something like this can work. I'm also thinking about rounding the corners, but that's something that I'm not sure about. So I select all of these points, round them slightly, maybe. Then I'll just further tweak these points just one more time. Okay, I think this is cool. And now we'll just move it to the side and see the texture, or the actual thing that we see here. So it first of all doesn't have any stroke. It has a fair color, which is a linear gradient. It goes from darker to lighter. So we're gonna get this color, we're gonna make it darker, and then on the other point it's gonna be this, but maybe even lighter. Or actually not gonna be, it's gonna be something like this. And then we need again drop an inner shadow. So style shadow, and it's gonna be inside. We're not gonna see it, so we're gonna zoom out a little bit. Yeah, now we can see it. Yeah, it's a little hard to edit, but we're gonna do 0.5 on the X2, then maybe blur it a little bit. Yeah, like this. It definitely has that depth now, but we have to decrease the opacity of this shadow. Yes, something like this. Maybe we can actually do 1 pixel. And then we can duplicate this. We can set this to -1, set it to outside, and then actually back to 1, 1. And then set this to white and a little bit stronger. Yeah, that's kind of it, I think. One thing, maybe this gets a little bit less crazy. The linear, yeah, that looks good, looks good. Okay, so now all I have to do is to copy this path and paste it within this button frame that we created, and then set it to absolute position. and we'll pin it to the top right. Actually, I have no idea why I don't have the pins here. I thought that we have it for SVGs, but no problem. We're gonna wrap this path in a frame. So we just press Command and Enter. Now it's a frame icon. Within that we have the path, and now here I can set this to -4 maybe, -4 here. Looks like this. But the icon that we created, the frame, has overflow hidden, so we'll set it to visible, so the highlight is also showing nicely. And maybe we're moving it to a little bit too much. We're gonna try 0. It's a little bit too close, maybe -2 then. Yeah, that will probably be the best. I'm gonna set the linear color back to a little bit of a darker color. Yeah, that's great. So now I just duplicate this icon and I set this left to -2. It seems like I didn't duplicate it, but whatever, I'll just rotate it, try duplicating again, Command and D, set this to -2, rotate it, then again, Command and D, bottom is gonna be -2, and then rotate it, then duplicate, then this is going to be -2, and let's rotate this. So now we have this, but you might not notice it, but in fact we made this now inaccurate because of these all of these rotations, because now the gradients are also rotated within the icons and the shadows and everything, so we'll have to reset them. So the way we're going to do that is basically, so this is what we want to have, and then we're just going to come here and just reset it. So boom, this is what we need, and then the white thing should be -1 and 1. I think that's great, and then the shadow will be like this. So you can see now the shadow is coming from the left, and the right part has this lighter part, the light rim. And I'll basically do the same for each of these. There you go, last one is tweaked too. And at this point we're kind of done. Of course, when this gets elevated, we'll have to change or add some drop shadow. Hopefully we're going to be able to do that, maybe adding it to the whole mask. Not really. Button content, maybe, let's see. If we add this here, maybe realistic. Actually, no, I'm not gonna add realistic, I'm gonna add books outside. We're not really seeing it because we have a mask here. So maybe it's gonna be on the whole, right? We just add a shadow here. Well, the problem here is that it goes below these things. Maybe what I can do is I can set these icons, or actually the whole, to a larger z-index. Hopefully it's gonna fix it. Yeah, that fixes it. So yeah, we're gonna just have a smaller blur value, something like this, and then something like this, 15%. And yeah, it's gonna be increased here, but yeah, we're gonna add that a little bit later. For now, let's just set this to 0 opacity, and let's set up the starter state. So bottom is 0 padding, top is a little bit more, and we can wrap this whole thing, or turn this into a component at this point. So we have this button frame, create component, and then here we're not really seeing the reality here because we have black background, and even if we have white, actually it looks pretty good because this canvas background is really similar to what we have, so that's perfect. So default component here, and then I'm gonna press here, hover, and then on hover we're gonna elevate it. So this frame will get 0 top padding, and the bottom padding will be increased. Now we're going to see when it moves out completely. So as you can see, I'm just moving it up and down. It's moving nicely. I can just move it like this. Perfect. So it moves up We can also check it really quickly. As you can see, as I hover over, it moves up. And when I click it, I want it to go down. So if I click here, pressed, I can create another version. Oopsie, wait a second. Let's revert. Let's remove that because I also want to add the nice shadow. So we're going to come here to the hole. And I think this is the one that we created for it. So 15%. And we're going to move it down a little bit. And well, I don't know if this should be a little bit more or less. But yeah, I'm just going to fine tune this a little bit. Now, as you can see in preview, as it moves up, it also adds some drop shadow. And then on the pressed state, we're literally gonna remove this drop shadow. So 0, 0. And then we're gonna move it inside by changing bottom to 0 and the top padding to a little bit larger value. I actually don't know how much it moves in, maybe 20. So we can now take a look, moves out, and then moves in. As I'm selecting the text, which is not a great experience. So get started text will get styles, user select on the right. And that basically wraps up this whole project. We successfully recreated this amazing skeuomorphic button from Camden inside the Framer without writing a single line of code. And you can see his version is really bouncy. The way that is created is adding transition overrides to the component. So as you can see, we have this default primary variant. Here we can set this time to 0.5 and the bounce to a little bit larger value. And now you're going to see that this whole thing is a little bit more bouncier. But you can go wild with this, so feel free to experiment with this. If you have a large bounce value here, then it's gonna bounce a lot. So yeah, basically that's it for this video. I really do hope that it was helpful and you were able to learn how these skeuomorphic buttons, or basically how any skeuomorphic element is created inside of Framer. And yeah, I think the great thing about this is that now we created it and it's not in Figma. This is a live website. So we click publish in the top right, and this is a live website on the internet. So it's a really cool thing. As you can see, we were able to animate it really easily with a component. Press and hover effects are really simple to add. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you have any questions about the whole process or anything, feel free to drop them in the comments. And also check out Framer University. If you go to framer.university, you'll find like a bunch of other lessons just like this, or resources, components, scroll animations, or whatever. You can remix all of them for completely free. So if you're building sites and looking for assets or inspiration, or you're just learning Framer, it's probably gonna be a super cool website for you. So this is for this one. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.